welcome to Divisive Issues, the spoiler-mouthed,
What?
foul-mouthed, no, spoiler-filled, spoiler-mouthed. We're technically spoilering.
Loud-filled comic podcast.
Yeah.
I'm Phil.
I'm Sly.
And I'm Darryl. You probably know us by now. It's a
There's
new
like
year.
two fans, or no, right now it's one fan, but Darryl's the one who suggested this, so two fans. But I also like so it's three fans.
I think you can tell that Ryan's not with us today, so we're immediately falling into chaos. He is the Superman to our dark world, and he has left us.
Yeah, Ryan's going to be busy this whole month, so this episode and the next episode will be Ryanless. And so I took this opportunity, and I was like, you know what? Let's read a story about a dark Superman, so we can just be like, isn't this like a better way to portray what like someone with too much power would be like?
Ryan's more like the Plutonian than he is like Superman for us.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, let's hope he doesn't listen to this.
So now Phil said it, not us.
I'll be the one killed.
So we're reading Irredeemable. It's written by Mark Waid and drawn by Peter Krause. And we're going to be covering the first 8 issues. And this was post-college. I think this was like the first comic I read post-college. Like away from Ryan's influence. And I think it was my brother got me to read this. And it's like, the premise of this is what would happen if Superman snapped, and the book calls it going rogue, but it's essentially what if he just started murdering people just for almost no reason.
Yeah,
it's
not. He's not like I'm evil, like in the sense like I want to join the villains. He's like just lost his mind and is killing everyone.
Yep.
I remember when Darryl, I think, mentioned Nemesis. He heard Nemesis and Irredeemable mentioned as a good double feature.
Yes, side by side. One's like evil Batman, the other one's evil Superman.
And I think that explanation is pretty apt. This feels like Mark Waid doing his best Millar impression.
I felt, well, I guess we'll get into it later, but like reading this, I kept thinking like, why to me does this work and Millar doesn't? Like, there were so many.
Well, it's a very obvious reason. The writing is better, and the characters. There's actually human moments in this, unlike a Millar work.
Yeah, it's like so dark in this comic, like Millar stuff, but because they never turn to the camera and say like "lick my balls, honey" or something like that, I'm like, wow, this is very poignant.
Yeah, and as I was rereading this, like the first time I read it, I'm like, oh, this is really neat. But now that I read like Sly has had me read so many edgelord books, I'm like, oh no, like I didn't realize how edgelord influenced this is, especially with like the first scene in this. But it never comes off as too much to me, where I'm like, there's a couple times where it's like maybe you could tone down a little bit, but it keeps it interesting. Like
the sex stuff, I could do without. I think this comic would be better without in the sex stuff and the sex slave stuff.
I kind of like it.
Oh, okay, so I have it on.
It's because I like weird perversion stuff. It's like how I like the weird sex cult stuff from Flex Mentality. It's like I like seeing people with like their inhibitions gone, and it's like, what would you do?
I also like the fact that in this, the evil Superman, like, he obviously something fucked up happened to him to make him like this. He's not like the Millar character would have been born a sociopath and have grown up being like, I've been planning on killing your baby since I was born. Like they like relish in it from their whole life, where he does start to relish on the violence at a certain point here. I mean, from the beginning, but he has like, there's many times where he's like, you see he's like lost his mind.
Yeah, it shows you like flashbacks, and he's trying to be a good person, and this is essentially a person that gets traumatized to the point where they decide to inflict harm on other people because no one can stop them, and they start enjoying that.
So Darryl said he didn't have any backstory for his book, but I do want to say, from my experience of reading comics, and from experiences I've pursued on to you guys, this came out like near the end of the Millar, peak of Millar influence. This came out around the time of The Boys, Wanted. So I found it funny when I was like, "This is a mind-blowing book that's so different." This is following every trend at the time. Evil Superman exploiting people is like the most. Like we read Infinite Crisis, that happened around the same time too. Superboy Prime, like that. This when Darryl's like, "This is gonna blow your mind," I'm like, I've seen this so many fucking times, and it definitely feels from that era.
I think for me, the thing is, it's always like, what is your first introduction to that idea? And I had not read The Boys, I had not read Infinite Crisis, I had read no Millar, and this was my first introduction to it. And since it was handled well from Mark Waid's point of view, it was like, it was that the wanted moment when you first read it when you're a teenager and you're like, this is awesome. Like, comics aren't for kids anymore, kind of a thing. Where I'm like, superheroes aren't perfect.
I can't judge you on that because if anyone watched our Wanted episode, I admit I liked it when I first read it, so fuck me.
Yep. All right, so we're going to start getting into it. And it opens with showing the, what's his name? The Plutonian man.
Plutonian. Is this Plutonian?
Yeah, he's just the Plutonian.
Yeah, the Plutonian. It shows his eyes, and he starts like looking into a house, and then you have like this guy running out. Sarah, it's a superhero, and he's like, we have to go. Like we know he's here. We know he's around. He knows everything, all about us, our identities, and he's listening. And then they start running downstairs, and there's like explosions going on, and he's just like using his eye lasers, the Plutonian. And his wife is with their infant child, and she can't open the door. She says it's open. It won't open. It's stuck from the heat. And then it shows the Plutonian's eyes, and they just evaporates them into like just skeletal remains.
There are a lot of baby skeletons in this comic. It's pretty disturbing. Yeah, babies and kids.
Yeah, which is the edgelord thing where it's like, always attack the children, show how like gritty and dark it is. And then the father takes his daughter and he runs downstairs and he's saying the weapons in the cave, and he gets into the basement and the Plutonian grabs him by the ankle and like he makes him fall down, and the guy starts pleading with him. He's like, please, not my daughter too. She's only a little girl. And the Plutonian says, I know exactly what she is. She's a carbon bag of atoms and bioelectricity. And he uses his laser vision, just evaporates the dad into bones and ash too. And we should mention, like, his outfit is like, it's all red with like black cuffs and then like a black triangle right around like his neckline.
Like the show his regular costume, which is like all white. Yeah. He does his like modern costume when at post evilness is very much like, I'm the evil version now, because like he even shaves like his head.
Yeah.
To look more sinister.
Also, you should have said, he says, I know who she is. She's a carbon bag of atoms electricity. Do you know who I am, Sarah? I'm a superhero. He whispers in her ear and then flies away.
Yeah, and he
that felt
away
like
from the house exploding.
Like that felt like a very Millar line.
I agree, and that's why starting this off, I was like, oh, another one of these. Like I don't feel like it keeps that fucking like edginess for the sake of it for most of this. I just felt like that. Yeah. I do agree with that intro though.
I will say it gets better. It gets better the further in it goes. It feels like it's trying to win in, but these early pages felt like it was trying to win over the Millar crowd. Like they would see this page like, "Whoa, Superman blew up a fucking kid! It's awesome. Go buy more."
Yeah, I 100% agree with you guys. And it was funny because the first time I read this, I was like, "This is crazy," because Superman blew up a fucking kid. I was like, "That's so edgy." But now rereading it, it's like there's probably maybe a nicer way to handle it with how much like sentimentality is within this series. Yeah. There could be a different way to do it, but this is the way it is now. He murders the child of a superhero. And then it cuts to 1 week later, and it shows the Plutonian find like a big like comic booky robot and deactivating a nuclear bomb within him. And
it's old white costumed Plutonian.
Yeah, so this is when he was good. He was fighting him in like a baseball field.
Even though it says 1 week later, it's clear this is not really 1 week later.
But it's someone remembering it 1 week later.
Yeah,
and then the dialogue says, "And that was the first day you met him, Sam." And then there's a guy who shows up who has a gem in like the middle of his forehead. And he's like, I can't, I think it's tough to remember.
He's like an Indian kid.
Yeah.
And he's basically remembering Plutonian in his like golden days. It's like the team all together. It looks like the fucking Justice League shows up. Like,
this comic has very blatant comic book like Justice League analogies. Yep. They have a Hawkman analogy. They have two twins that seem like they're one twins, and they have a Black Lightning / Static Shock / every Black Electric hero character.
Yeah. Who makes fun of the fact that he's another Black Electric superhero. And he's like trying to remember, and the guy who's questioning him says like, you said you remembered something else. There's something else you noticed. And the kid is trying to remember, but he keeps struggling and saying, I can't remember. I just want to lie down. And then it keeps going back, and they're like, you have to tell us. Focus. You were his best. Like, he was our teammate, but you knew him best. You have to tell us what happened. We're counting on you. Everyone worshipped him. We see all the flashbacks of this kid being like his sidekick, and you see him fighting these skeleton guys in suits. You see him getting an award with the Plutonian. You see him flying away.
And the kid too explains like the power that he has is the gem in his forehead. protects him from mortal harm so that he regenerates every night. Not that, like, if he lost a finger, he'd be able to regenerate it, but that he can't really, like, die.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, he's immortal.
And the guy starts, like, screaming at him, telling him, like, you have to remember, you called us, but what were you trying to say? And the kid starts bleeding out of his nose, and he's like, I can't, I don't know. He just starts, like, stuttering. And then one of the other superheroes sees the back of his head, and it's like, he got, like, lobotomized by the Plutonian.
They have a flashback of the Plutonian lobotomizing him in the back of the head.
Because the Plutonian, just like Superman, he has all the Superman powers, so with X-ray vision, he was cutting out the part of the brain. Yeah, with heat vision.
Well, but technically, X-ray vision is just... Heat vision is just him focusing his X-ray vision really hard, so...
Oh, TIL.
Yeah. And so Sam says, I don't remember hardly anything anymore. That's all I have left in my head. Please kind of lie down now. And the guy interrogating him is like, yes, Sam. And he just lies down in his grave as he's been dead.
It's really fucked up, but it's like, oh my god, this guy can't die, but he's brain dead, basically. And I'm like, this is very dark.
And so the rest of the Justice League people around here, and this is another thing that I liked about it, is that you don't need to know anything behind these characters. You're just like, you get like the general gist. You're like, okay, these people like do this and they do that.
Yeah, like the guy who was interviewing him, he basically can like manipulate electronics and machinery.
Yeah, Qubit.
And he's like their strategist. So Qubit's like asking the team, he's like, we have to scan
I find it funny Darryl saying, you don't have to know these characters, you just know this character does this. For the first time in his life, I've heard Darryl say that.
Well, it's because the comic doesn't require you to know anything.
I know, but like, writers put that into consideration. Darryl's like, I don't care. I have to know these characters beforehand. This is the first time, just because he knows this issue one. The
thing is, like, certain characters can show up, and I'm like, I don't know if I am supposed to be like, oh, right, because of like
I think if you didn't do it in every single instance where you didn't know a character, I would believe your explanation right now, but I don't, because you do it every time, so... no.
But I think what he's saying is that there's like, and any time an established guy shows up, you could think like, what if the writer wants me to know something about them already? And here,
I know, but even like when like Mark Waid himself and like Jeff Johns, professional writers, introduce a character and try to make it as penetrable as possible, Darryl still's like, I refuse to accept this. I want to know his first appearance.
Well, there are some. I feel like it works with some things like Shazam, like anything where you're supposed to be looking at the inception, the beginning of a comic. I just like reading stuff from the beginning.
Yeah. So Qubit basically starts saying like we have to think about everything that we've ever learned about him, anything personally ever revealed. We need to know his background because they know his powers, but they don't know how the limits of them. They don't know where he came from, and so they basically start on a bunch of leads. Like one of them says, I think he had a girlfriend named Alana or something. I think. He must have a name. He's not the Plutonian, so he must have parents.
Yeah, he has to have like a secret identity, and that's going to help. So he has to have like parents somewhere. And then he gives them all a bunch of like wristwatches, and they're quantum teleporters, so that anytime he arrives, you can just jump through like a dimensional door and end up somewhere else. And then they look up in the sky, and the Plutonians there and just start shooting lasers at them. So it's like, all right, everyone scatter, stay in contact on frequencies you can't hear. And then they just jump through different doors. And as they go away, he says, perfect.
Yeah, I was not sold at this issue, I will say. But by the end, I was like, I wanted to keep reading. I was like, I want to just continue this whole series. So like, I felt like this improves a lot as it goes. Because even some stuff we learn later, like the fact that he's like burning people at Sam's grave, I'm like, I don't know. But anyway,
it's because it starts and it just feels like this guy's evil. He's like just run around shooting lasers, and you're like, okay, like there's not enough intrigue other than just like, because it really does just set up. What if Superman was evil? And you're like, I guess he would kill people with laser vision. So we start issue 2, and it opens with Kaiden. She's this Japanese superhero.
If you watch like Suicide Squad, she's fucking Katana basically. Or,
does Katana
this
use
power
ghosts?
is so different.
I know she has her dad's soul stuck in her sword or some shit like that, and this felt very inspired by that.
Oh, but this was like, I think it's so much cooler when they recite ghost stories. The ghosts become real and kill people.
Like
I like that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And it's not that blatant of an influence, but it felt kind of influenced by that. But it opens with a flashback, and you could tell the flashback by the way because they have no border.
They're the white the white around.
Yeah, so you could tell it's Plutonian helping her during in the past during a fight scene, And it cuts to in the modern day, and now she has white hair for some reason. And it's raining, and she's visiting basically the Plutonian's Lois Lane.
Yeah, the Alana Patel.
Yeah, they also give some backstory that he blew up Coast City or Sky City or whatever. Like there
Oh,
was.
it's not even Metropolis.
Oh yeah, right. It is because it's like, this gigantic metropolis city that he just somehow exploded. Yeah, and some people are still living in like the rubble, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And the Lois Lane lady is here too. Kaiden goes to visit her. She tries to like fire at her, but then she knocks her down on the ground, Lois Lane, and she's like, "I'm here to stop. You have to like tell me what's gone on between you guys." And she explains, like, she gives the backstory where she's like, "I was a sound engineer. I helped people escape from this building during this one time, like, these bad guys showed up and the Plutonian fought them. And then afterwards, he came down and he's like, 'Hey, like, nice work getting everyone out of there. You kept your head during all that, and I like that you saved lives. So what's your name?' And then he like flies her up in the sky, and it's like the generic like Superman Lois Lane romance where she goes into work and she's working with this nerdy other sound engineer guy, Dan Hardigan, and then she goes and like hangs out with the Superman version of him all the time.
Who like flies her to like some islands with dolphins and stuff.
Yeah, and he catches like puppies from getting hit by cars. And it shows that there were some gut-wrenching times, like whenever he had to go up against Murderous, and it's this guy with like no pupils in his eyes. He looks like an old man with a staff.
Yeah, he's basically set up as not exactly as like Lucifer, but like basically his arch nemesis. And
it's sort of like magic kind of Lex Luthor kind of a dude.
Yeah, he reminds me of like if I had to compare to anyone, it'd be Baron Mordo from Doctor Strange.
Yeah, that's good. He seems kind of.
And in
like
the scene,
too.
like Lois Lane is holding the Plutonian while he's like his skin is like bubbling and he's like
and it looks like very reminiscent of like Death of Superman.
Yeah,
like that's posed.
And Modius is just like draining his life or something.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, all of his enemies were frightening to some degree, but Modius was the only one that made him afraid. Have you fought him? And she's like, no, I heard the worst. And no one's sure what became of him. Like, he's just gone. And so she says, one day, Dan Hardigan, the nerd with glasses, pulled her aside. And he's like, I have something to ask you. Alana Patel, will you marry me? And she's like, whoa, Dan, you're great, but you're not the man I love. And he goes, yes, I am. And then he magically turns his hair blonde and takes off his glasses. And he's like, I am the Plutonian. And then it shows her shocked. And then she goes, what the hell? And he's like, honey. And she basically yelling at him.
She basically treats it like he was playing a prank on her. And playing a sick joke on her, pretending to be this fucking nerdy guy when he's actually Plutonian.
Yep. How long have you been laughing at me? It's like, honey, trust me. And she's like, I don't trust you. How can I? You come in here every day and you play your little joke on everyone here. And he's like, it's not a joke. And then she runs out into like the sound booth and she tells a bunch of people that Dan Hardigan is the Plutonian. And then they see him and he's got like the suit on under his overshirt. And they're like, wow.
I
really
legitimately
serious.
felt bad for him here. I'm like, he had to live a secret identity. I know it's like, in reality, it's like, you can't lie to someone like that. But it's like, he definitely was like, this is going to be such a romantic thing. And then they literally get on the air and start saying, interrupt this special broadcast for blah, 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 Plutonian.
Yeah, we have discovered the Plutonian. And then he flies up into like the stratosphere where the satellite is that they're broadcasting to, and he just crashes through it.
And it says that it takes 1/3 of a second to reach a satellite, but Plutonian is way faster than that. Which creates a big plot. I don't want to point this out too much because it's a plot hole in most Superman stories.
Yeah.
He should have stopped her revealing secret identity. Like, if he can go this fast.
I think he could have been in shock.
Yeah.
No, but he's following after her, and he's saying, no. Like, he could have stopped her. And I think if he was in cohesive mind to stop that satellite and make that connection, he could have stopped her before that.
Oh, it's always a problem with like kind of Flash stuff. Is like, shouldn't the Flash react faster than you can like surprise him or anything?
Yeah,
like there's always definitely.
It's like you guys have said that he like goes into like what you've talked about the Flash, because I always have that problem with him where I'm like, how could you? He should be able to calculate for 100 years everything that happens because he's just sitting there like waiting for time to pass. Because
this scene is pretty egregious for me because he uses that solution a scene later. It's like he doesn't think of it while They do mention he was too stunned. So
Yeah,
maybe,
that's what I think.
It's that he's not like thinking all the time. It's like I can use my powers to this. Like he totally expected her to go along with it and that he could reason to her. But as soon as they're like broadcasting out, it's Dan Hardigan. That's when he's like immediately goes into superpower mode. Like his eyes glow red.
It's like I was saying. I was going to try to say, like, when you've talked about the Flash stuff, you guys have talked about how he goes into the speedster like
there's
mode
no way,
or whatever.
That's the only way it makes sense. Like if he can turn it on and off that speed mode, or else, because like this, because then life is hell. That actually is how Quicksilver views reality, but that's why Quicksilver is usually an asshole in the comics because everyone's looking slow for him all the time.
And so he comes back down after blowing up the satellite and he says, "You idiots!" And they're like, "Don't hurt us." And he's like, "Me? How can I save you? Don't you realize that you now know the most dangerous secret on Earth? Think about like what the enemies would do to you. They would torture you. They'd flay your partners and rape your children with hot knives." There's another like good Millar line. Yeah. And then he says, "You can't ever like breathe a word of this to anyone, not even in your sleep. If you're drunk, if you're tired, if you're lonely, like you have to trust everyone here not to reveal the secret. Otherwise, like this is gonna happen. Your lives are worthless now. They're over. Even I can't save
and
you."
Lois Lane explains that like they all killed themselves after a while after this event.
Yeah. And what's great is he takes Lois Lane, he teleports her to another place where he flies her very fast. And he's like, "I just want to let you know, I forgive you." And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "You mean everything to me. Marry me and I'll protect you forever. You know, I forgive that you revealed the identity." And she's like, "But I don't even know who you are." And she walks away. And I like the because it's a flip of like the Superman stuff where it's like Lois trusted Clark enough to be a good guy, but let's really, if someone's hiding this kind of secret identity from you, it is going to be like a major shock where you're like, "I didn't know you were doing this the entire time."
I also think because like the joke behind Superman is he is this frail, weak human being hiding this giant, and but like this is kind of an interesting like conclusion to that where like why would he do it except to play a joke on people like why would he do that?
He's hiding his identity.
I know, but why would he hide his identity? Because like in the old school universe, he didn't really care about Clark Kent. Clark Kent, he made look like an asshole all the time, and his mom and pa were dead, so he didn't have any connection to them.
I think the idea is to protect your family and stuff like that.
Yeah, protect your friends and family.
I know, but his family was dead in the old continuity. Before the movies and stuff made the parents more of characters in the comics.
You're saying why would Clark Kent hide his identity?
Yeah, like why would Golden Age Clark Kent? Like it seems like he is just playing a joke. Like I forget who said it. I think Grant Morrison said it. The original Clark Kent was Superman's critique of humanity as weak, cowardly people. Basically. So like if Grant Morrison can interpret it like that, maybe she would interpret it like that too.
Mm-hmm. And so afterwards, like he blew up, Metropolis and everything. And Kaiden asks her, it's like, "Can you tell me about the parents?" And she's like, "I don't know. He was very guarded. Something about growing up in Wyoming is the most he ever said." And you could tell that was a slip. And she's like, "All right, come with me. I'll keep you safe. Like we have a base." And she's like, "No offense, but like I'm more worried about you than me because he can hear my heartbeat. He can smell my perfume. He can find me anywhere if he wants to, but he hasn't done anything yet." So it's like, that's why I haven't left my home is, I don't have anything to fear if he hasn't killed me yet. And then she says, "We're all going to die."
Yeah. So then, Catan, I forget her name already. What's her name?
Kaiden.
Calls the computer wizard guy.
Cubit.
Cubit teleport away, and then it cuts to Cubit's office, and it's a bunch of Mobius's, the Barrymore type guy in his office. And we should know like to paint the image in your head, like artistically, this reminds me very much of Mark Millar works as well, like that very gritty, realistic art style. And the pacing is very fast, like a Millar book as well. This issue flies by.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times too, like unlike Millar where he just ends on big splash pages of people being like, "This shit got fucked."
Yeah, there's actually a twist. There's a twist that...
Yeah, they're good twists because he's not only working with Mobius, but there's multiple Mobiuses, and you're like, what's going on? Are they robots? Are they clones? Like, what's happening here?
Yeah, and so issue 3 opens with Darryl's favorite, the sex stuff.
My favorite. No, yeah.
And there's a woman on the bed.
I was going to say Sly's favorite, cucking, but this isn't cucking.
No, it's not.
This is like, yeah.
It starts with someone who may be or looks like the superhero woman on the Justice League that we saw, and then someone who kind of looks like the Plutonian on top
Do
of
we ever
her.
know? Do we ever know her name? Because I don't know. I don't know. Who she
Bet.
is.
Bet Noir.
Yeah.
I guess she's supposed to be Black Canary, but she doesn't get much character development in these couple issues. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
She, like they focus more on her later.
Yeah.
they focus
Yes.
more on her being this obvious source of Mr. Irredeemable's lust.
His like incel angst.
Yeah.
Not like incel. It's his scorned love angst.
And he's gonna take it out by having this two couple dress up as one dressed up as Plutonian, and not dressed up. Yeah, even dressed up as Plutonian, and one dressed up as her fucking each other. And
Yeah,
and-
because like the woman has a wig on that makes her look like Bet Noir, the Black Canary from the Justice League
And
here.
the guy is saying, "Say it," and she's like, God, he says, like, "For God's sake, do it. Say it for him." And then she, on the bed with her wig falling off, says, "Save me, please save me." And he
and
fucking.
he starts,
Yeah.
he starts crying. Did you feel bad for him this page too? This poor guy.
I
Poor
did.
thing.
It was for me. It was more like this guy has some problems if he's making two people have sex and which one of them's him. But I like that it gets explained later. I don't know if it explains in the first 8 issues, but he's so strong that he can't actually really have sex with anyone.
Oh,
So that's why he has to watch them have
I
sex.
did.
Is it like this? Is it like that Superman joke where if his sperm would go like a bullet through Lois Lane?
Well, I think all he says is, "We can't like sleep together. I would destroy you."
It makes sense.
Oh God. Okay.
So then you have these the Wonder Twin people. One of them has like a metal plate over the left eye, and then one over the right eye.
They're like Kano from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
Scylla and
yeah.
Charybdis, the sea monsters from the Odyssey.
Yep. And in this, they're breaking into this complex that the Batman of this universe used to own, and it was basically he created his Batcave under a condemned prison.
And when one of the brothers stays up top, one goes inside, and the one who goes inside, as he gets in there, sees a villain team, or I don't know if they're a team, but a bunch of villains in there, and they were kind of looking in here for a way to kill.
You learned they're a villain team because they came in here to basically talk about how Inferno captured them and stuff like that, and how they
Inferno's the Batman of this universe.
Yeah, and like Plutonian flew in and basically punched Inferno in the face and
yeah. So I feel like if Superman killed Batman and then all Batman's like rogues gallery just go into the Batcave and they're like, "Man, this is crazy! Like I can't believe he's dead."
It's funny. I bring that up because stylistically these don't look like villains. They look like they could be part of the hero team. Like the costumes aren't very villainous looking.
Yeah.
The one guy looks kind of villainy to me. With the,
Which one?
The giant one.
I mean that could be just a big strong guy on the team.
Yeah, that's true. It looks like a 60s X-Men costume.
Yeah, he does.
I like how very they're and that they're not like direct knockoffs. Like throughout this whole thing, there isn't like 100% other than Superman is supposed to be Plutonian.
No, I would argue there are some. Purple Lightning guy is like Black Lightning. Betty Noir seems like, at least because from my scene, she looks like she's Black Canary.
But she uses like a gun that stops people.
But like the design looks, and well, I haven't read further.
I mean, a woman with black hair and a blue outfit.
But like stylistically, I know. But more importantly, of these characters, Phil says like I like they all look different. But like there's like when you design like villains, one character has this idea. You have to use like there's things you put in to make it clear they're villains visually. Like one character, the one that looks most like a villain to me is the guy in the purple suit, because purple and green are secondary colors, and superheroes are supposed to have primary colors like red and blue, while villains supposed to have so like he's the only one that actually looks like a villain out of this whole group, because everyone else is wearing blue pretty much.
And so some darker colors too. I feel like I'll like a lot of dark blue other than the lady.
Well, the big strong guy and ladies.
Yeah, so he's saying like, "Hey, let's look around for stuff."
And they're like, if the Plutonian's a villain now, does that mean he's on our team? And if he is, how do we turn that to our advantage?
How do we co-opt a god?
Yeah, and so the Scylla is like listening to them and recording them and sending it back to the like headquarters.
Yeah, lab with Qubit there. And here, like, Kaiden's come back, and she's already like, "Why are there like all these like Modiuses hanging around with you?" So he's not like hiding it necessarily from the rest of them.
Then they find this gun, and they're like, "Wow, remember this? He melted the crime tank with this." And I love it. And then when they're walking through the base, one of the villains says, They're all masochists, aren't they? Superheroes putting their private lives aside so they can go out at night and beat up the bad man who killed mommy and daddy. And as he's saying this, the Plutonian's in there, and he's heating
in the room. He's heating up his coffee with his laser vision,
and then he walks right past them, and they're just like stunned watching this. Scylla starts like he doesn't say anything. He's just like fuck.
He's acting like they're not there. Like he's going to drink his coffee and sit down.
So he sits down. A guy starts pulling out a gun on the Plutonian.
The guy of the tank melter gun.
Yeah. So he pulls out his gun, and then the Plutonian crushes his coffee cup, and then flicks a little shard of it, and just blows up the guy's arm. And he says, like, I know I bet you're dying to scratch that same itch. Don't look surprised that I'm here. Just because I can ram through a mountain with my head doesn't mean I'm not smart. He's like, I know you guys were going to get here, safety in numbers and all that. And so he's like, all right, so if you guys want to be, like, if we want to be on a team together, I'm going to give you the secret to, like, stopping me, but you have to earn my trust.
He also does, while he's telling them this, say kind of he starts to give some reasoning of why he's being such an asshole. He starts to say like this. Let me tell you about the kind of world that we live in, like or I live in. That it's a world of miserable, bitter, ungrateful paramecium who lash out at you in a state of perpetual rage for not solving their problems fast enough. You do astonishing things for them 100 times a day. You bring wonder to the lives of ordinary people. But in the end, you realize it's like doing magic tricks for a dog.
So you build a home out of a volcano, and you hope the noise drowns them out. And then Cubit's listening in on this through Scylla, and he's like, volcano, that's new information, make a note of it.
Also, before this, they're like, we should get Scylla out, but Cubit's like, we gotta get information. As soon as he shows any sign that he's on to us, we'll get him out.
And so he hands them all these, like, buttons, and he's like, here we go, like, so if you want to be a part of, like, my group, make sure that you don't push those, and everyone just starts pushing a button thinking that this is, like, part of his weakness.
Because he says, you came here hoping the Inferno, the mighty tactician, might have something that could kill me. Here it is. And so they all start pressing it, and he's like, wow.
I didn't even get to the end of the sentence. I gave you a fair choice. Did you really think that I'd hand you a way to hurt me, even if there was such a thing? And then he talks to the Riddler guy, and he's like, what would you build in your headquarters to keep it out of your enemy's hands after they die? And then numbers are counting down. And then it blows up the entire, like, complex. It shows, like, the Plutonian man just standing there as everyone else is reduced to skeletons. And then only one person survives. It's this lady that can put up a force field around herself. And she's like, please, I'll do anything to live. And he says, I wonder what you'd look like in a wig. And you're like, oh no.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Spoilers, he makes her to a sex slave.
Yeah.
He doesn't have sex with her.
I mean, you're still forcing them to have sex with other people, which is a sex slave.
You think it's only wrong if you fuck them?
Yes, yeah, right? That makes sense.
So issue 3 begins with Cubit's backstory, where he talks...
A quick note about this. Sorry to point out all the Scylla stuff, but like I find it interesting because this feels so 2008 for me. The cover shows the Hawkman parallel fighting Plutonian, which I find funny because the Hawkman parallel will die very easily to Plutonian. but also the covers have nothing to do with what's inside the story.
Ever.
This is very much like this was an era where comic artists basically said the comic cover is basically like a poster. It should have nothing to do with this plot ever. It just has to look, supposed to look cool, pretty much.
Oh, I didn't even realize that through looking at it. So I was just like, oh, this is like, I didn't even think about that they're not related.
There's like jets flying in it, and you never see conventional militaries fight him. They talk about how he just shit on them, but yeah, I thought that was funny.
So the issue opens up with Cubit explaining his backstory about like how he met Tony like 6 years ago in another dimension. It's like your typical like summarizing like a comic book story where he's like, I came in here through cheese, but I didn't realize that these aliens would get mad at me, and so Tony came here. They call Plutonian man Tony. That's like the shorthand name for him. He's like, Tony would come here and save me.
Cubit, by the way, like he looks like kind of like a Doctor Who character. Like a Doctor Who. He has like there's like a skinny British guy with like kind of his hair up a bit.
Yeah. And he uses like a door to teleport out of there. And Tony like tries to shake his hand. He's like, it's an honor to meet you. And Cubit's like a little skeeved out by that. He's like, sorry, it's just actual human contact. Sort of, I get this burning feeling. It's not you. The honor is mine.
And then they cut to John Bolton in front of the UN. It looks exactly like John Bolton. Like I can't imagine it's not him.
Oh, yeah.
Like
it really does. It really does.
And John, I think he was like during the Bush years, he was like ambassador to UN or something like that. So this has to be him. So yeah, John Bolton is like, we have to nuke fucking the Plutonian, attack.
Well, he's basically saying they have these screens up with the Plutonian, and it says like limitless strength, immeasurable speed, anti-gravity, impervious skin, power source, mutant human, extraterrestrial, loyalties, home base, weakness, and basically this John Bolton is saying to the UN, the United States is open to the idea of nuclear armament alliances where we will literally ally with the rest of the world to fight the Plutonian. This is worldwide war.
Yeah, so I'm joking, but he is like supposed to be the good guy here, saying like we have to reunite as humanity. But all the UN nations are like, I support our Plutonian overlords.
I love this. The first person to speak is like, because he's saying we're at war, and the speaker from Kenya says, with a vengeful God, Mr. Secretary, one who can hear the whispers of a conspiracy from anywhere on the planet. The people of Kenya wish to extend not a fist, but an open hand by inviting him to the Kenyan throne as its new sovereign. And I'm like, this is the most logical thing to do.
And then unacceptable. The People's Republic declares itself as the Plutonian's new homeland. And they also being like, no, like, you can make it your home here, Mr. Plutonian.
And John Bolton's like, dear God, you can't tell me that you're proposing anything less than global unity in the face of this crisis. He's a psychopath. He's not a hero to your children. He's a genocidal maniac. What is wrong with you people? And then Plutonian blows his cold. What is Superman's power?
Yeah, it's cold. He can blow ice
breath. Yeah.
Ice breath.
Yeah, and he freezes John Bolton, and then he whistles, and the whistle shatters John Bolton. One evil defeated. And then he's like, actually, I kind of like where this debate was going, the Plutonian says. He's like, go ahead, continue. And everyone starts like panicking, running around. They're like, please, we'll offer you, we'll make you king, anything you desire. And he's like, that's interesting. And he goes, you're from, and the guy goes, Singapore? He's like, tell me, do you want to be my new home base? And he's like, sure, we'll do anything. And he's like listening to his heartbeat as he's getting like more excited that he's not going to murder them.
Because he says, and specifically he says, we embrace you because, and its heartbeat is like slow. And then he says, because we are grateful to you. And the heartbeat goes up. Yeah. And I think that's when people are lying, he hears it. And I think this is the touch here that he's again realizing no one is actually grateful for all the shit he did.
Oh,
I find it funny. He's actually offended. Like I assumed like he was gonna do this anyway, but I find it funny. He actually got offended that they're not grateful from after he fucking blew up people and murdered hundreds of.
I know. At this point, it's like, of course, they're not gonna be grateful, but I think his complex obviously stems from the fact that he saved people for like 99 times a day, and then other things.
The people are still ungrateful. Yeah. Like, yeah, even as an evil, like, known villain, he's still, like, attached to this obsession. Yeah. Being like, I can't believe you lied to my face about being grateful.
Well, that's the funny thing about life. Like, if you start destroying stuff, it kind of negates all the stuff you build up. Like, if you raise a child for 20 years and you murder him, that kind of negates the good you did, doesn't it?
Yeah, and so
but it doesn't mean that, like, if you're the person murdering the child, that you think, well, I'm a villain, I'm irredeemable now. You still are like, don't you realize all the good I've done? That's like, all the villains in the movie are like, don't you realize everything that I did to help you?
Yeah, that is a very human thing. Like going back to that analogy, it's like a fucked up mom saying, I butchered this world, I'll take you out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you should be grateful.
So what does he do to them? He goes to space. He starts crushing meteors so hard they become diamonds. And then he throws these diamonds to Singapore and burns them on the way down. So he basically
just makes meteors hit Singapore and blow it up.
But no, he doesn't just blow it up. He makes a foundation of diamonds that is so hard that he can push it. And he slams into Singapore, and the diamonds are strong enough to take his push. And he pushes Singapore into the ground and sinks the entire island of 4 million people.
That's what he does. That's what he eventually does at the end of this. But first, it looks like he's just throwing out meteors. And the Q-Bert and all the other characters.
Q-Bert?
What's the fucking name? Q-Bit?
Q-Bit.
Q-Bit, and Hawkman and Noir go.
They jump in and they're like, we can't fight him. And they're like, no, this is a search and rescue. We just want to save anyone we can.
But then Plutonian's like, no, you can only save 10. And
right, he catches Q-Bit.
He stops the rest of them, and then he catches Cubit and leaves him uninjured, and he's like, I want you just to choose 10 people to save. And he's like, Tony, there are millions. It says, just choose 10. And he's like, there, 10. Are you happy now? 10 of millions? It says, that's what it feels like. And then he just kills the rest in front of him, and then
first he kills the ones in front of him with Fury Vision, then he does the...
Sinking the island.
Yeah, sinking island shit, yeah.
I will say, as this went on, I did feel more and more sympathetic with the Plutonium because of the fact that when you start to see him later on in the flashbacks, and you hear him, I didn't realize he can hear the whole world like all the time. And so he's hearing people, as he's trying to go just have a quick conversation with someone. He takes 5 seconds to go talk to someone. He hears someone getting mugged, someone getting shot, someone dying, needs like having a heart attack. Like he's hearing at every moment. It's like when we talk about Superman, where like he has to be saving people all the time. It's like if you knew everywhere, you could technically save someone, but everywhere
it's
at
like
the same time,
someone getting murdered every 5 seconds. If you could hear around the entire world, you would be hearing people get murdered every 5 seconds.
And you can save some of them. You can, but he has to choose. And every time he stops to do anything else, he's condemning everyone he hears to death.
All right, so Phil always bitches about me spoiling shit, so fuck you. That's a massive spoiler. But I will say
is
that.
it?
Yes, it is. Because I was
a couple pages, a couple issues ahead.
I was going to say that's when I started liking this book, when that reveal happened. But now we know. Okay, there we go.
Okay, I thought that was soon.
Yeah. Anyway, the issue ends with the rest of the team in the hospital, and Cubit goes over to one of the Modius bots. You can see that like their face panels come off so that you can see their robot.
We didn't say that.
No, we haven't said that they're
robots. In the thing he says.
Oh yeah, very boring plot point. Modius made robots himself, and now Cubit
made the.
Oh, Cubit made the robots. Okay, so Cubit
made the robots.
Cubit made the robots to think exactly like Modius in the hopes that they would know where he's gone because he can't find Modius, and Modius seems to be the only one able to stop.
Because he said Modius, everyone said that he's the only one the Plutonian feared was Modius. And so he's like, yeah, eventually, if they really do think like him, they'll find him. They'll go where he went.
Darryl, I take it back what I said before. I was focusing too much on a few characters. I will say, these characters are very different from like just straight up copies. Cooper especially is a very interesting character. He is like he's like doing anything. He's like the morally ambiguous character doing whatever it takes to get to the Plutonian.
Yeah, or like the Plutonian's old like buddy Samsara, Sam. Like I feel like there's no direct analogy of like an eternally coming back Indian sidekick.
Yes, it reminds me in a weird way. He reminds me of like Johnny Quest, the Indian guy from Johnny Quest, but that's like me being weird, probably.
Yeah, Haji.
Yeah, Haji. But
yeah, it might be racist.
Yeah, it might be racist. but I was just focusing on a few characters. There are way more differences than I initially thought after finishing it.
And so the next issue opens issue 5 with him inserting a CD into like this thing that was seized from Modius. It's like a transmits data to everyone's like electronic devices, and so the Plutonian man comes on everyone's screens.
You keep calling the Plutonian fucking man. What the fuck, Darryl? You keep calling the Plutonian man.
What is he?
Just
the Plutonian?
He's just a Plutonian.
I'm sorry.
Superman. You call this guy
Plutonian
Cubert.
I know, but I'm having I'm being dumb, but Darryl loves his book. It's like a favorite book. It's like here's my favorite book, Superman.
Yeah, I'm getting words mixed up.
He basically says, let's answer some viewer mail. And he starts responding to people who said things bad about him. Like this one guy, because he can hear it. They're also saying here they can hear everyone. But he hears someone say, this guy couldn't be the same Plutonian everyone loved. And he's like, trick question, Lay. How loved could I have been if they're that eager to turn on me? You called me a monster. I've never done anything to you or to your children, ages 5 and 8. And he starts basically saying to all the people who are shit talking him, he basically starts just saying, I know about your life. I know your family's names. Yes, you have cancer. Like,
we should. I don't know if we mentioned this, but a lot of this book feels like, on top of everything else, it also feels like a response to people like Darryl, who are like, Superman's lame, because while he's saving people, he hears it like in the crowd, people are saying, that Superman's such a dork, and he's like, am I fucking dork now, motherfuckers? So it seems like he's like a response to that.
I don't think he's lame for not beating the shit out of people that call him a dork. I'm just like, how does this stuff not get to you? Which is why, like, this is the ultimate, like, this gets to this guy, and you get to see like how petty he is, because he even says to them, it's like, you know, that what they said about like gods of myth, that they disguise themselves as ordinary men, that they're in a bar, or they're the new recruit or the foreigner that just moved in upstairs, and then he lets him know that this was a pre-recorded message. He could be anywhere. Sleep tight. And he's just really messing with all these people.
Yeah.
It's just so like awful and terrible that he does this, but he's also just like, he's tortured himself, which makes him sympathetic. Not that you should sympathize with
He
him.
is irredeemable, as the title says.
Yeah.
It makes it understandable, not forgivable. You're like,
Yes,
I get why you
yes,
got here,
precisely.
but it doesn't mean it's okay.
The thing that makes it stand out amongst all the million other evil Superman out there, probably out of all the ones I've read, this feels the most like a regular person having Superman's powers. Like if Superman wasn't this perfectly charismatic and charming person, like the Lois Lane scene is a good example. Like most people fuck up courting people most of the time, and he
exactly, like you can't pull off a Superman Lois Lane thing where you're like, surprise, I've been lying to you, my love. I'm actually this other person you weren't attracted to the entire time.
Yeah, so and
she's like, I love you. It's also not like the 50s anymore.
And when we get to spoilers later, we'll see that he makes mistakes, but like on the scale of power that he has, he's not allowed to make mistakes.
Yes.
And like in real life, a person with Superman's powers will make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, like humans make mistakes, which is again why I'm like, I totally get being upset at the fact that you're like, I'm 99.9% of the time, I'm literally saving the world. And if 0.1% of the time I make mistakes, everyone's like, you're fucking terrible.
You're irredeemable.
Yeah. And so that's why I can imagine at a certain point you're like, no, I can't deal with this.
Yeah, and so this issue focuses on the I forget what this guy's name, the
Volt.
black superhero with electric powers.
Volt.
Yep.
So to go back to Millar homage stuff going on, Millar always liked to have his characters drawn by the actors he wanted to play him in the movie later, like Samuel Jackson as Nick Fury. It feels like he wanted Samuel Jackson to play Volt, because he very much reminiscent of Samuel Jackson's attitude.
Yeah, it really is, where it's just like, it says, you're that Volt fella, you don't sound like I thought you would, and it goes, oh, I'm sorry, sweet fudging monkey lover, is that better? It's like, oh, I'm sorry, skip it.
And there's just people being racist to him, and then he takes the money, and the Plutonian shows up, and it's like, you shouldn't take money for this. And he's like, basically, I want to invite you to the team.
Wait, before that, I just wanted to illustrate that concept. He says, like, to the bank manager when he gives him money back, he says, it's got to be a service, and the bank manager's like, pardon? That is to say, faux shizzle, you racist bastard. And then the one guy says, back to your hood then? Ah, yes, my hood. To listen to some fat jams. And he walks away.
And then that's when the Plutonian shows up, and he's holding Bette Noir, like the Black Canary lady. And which I like, because he says, like, is that your girlfriend? He's like, what? No, Bette? No, she's not. We're just... And then she's like, heh. And he asks him, just like, hey, why don't you come join this Justice League team? And... later on, as they're looking at everyone in the hospital, who's the one that survived? Scylla?
I don't fucking know.
Charybdis survived.
Okay.
They should have given him a fucking nickname, like Kirby and Syphilis.
They call him Carrie.
They call him Carrie? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Carrie.
Let's call him Carrie.
There you go, Slide. Mark Waid's listening to your criticism.
I know, but Phil insists on using the fucking proper name, so I'm like, did they really call him Cribbis 3 fucking times? No fucking name.
Yeah, they call him Carrie. And Carrie's the one, he's the brother that survived. The other brother got completely blown up when Batman's secret place got blown up too. And he's like wrapped up in bandages, and he's all pissed off. You know, he does the thing where he looks in the mirror, and then he punches the mirror. And he's like, what do I have now? What do I have left? I don't have a family. I don't have a face. I don't have any powers. And it flashes back to when Volt was talking to the Plutonian. He's like, Tony, please help us, when he first went rogue. And he's like, it's not too late to make this right. What can I do? All you've done for me, I'll give my left arm for you. You know that. And then Tony says, let's call it even then. And then it shows him like grasping at his missing left arm in the present time.
Yeah, and he's been missing his arm the whole entire time, but now this is the first time I noticed it anyway.
Yeah.
Yep. It's the same thing with me, where it's like, oh, that's pretty good and dark.
And they cover it all the time, the left arm. I went back, and it's always like kind of covered.
Yep. And
also, I like to, when they were recruiting Volt, just to go back, like I do like the characters in this a lot. Like when they're chastising him for taking money for these jobs, he's like, I can't pay my bills. I can't drive a car. Everything I touch explodes if it's electric at all. Like, my life sucks. I need to be able to make money somehow.
Yeah. It's cool. Like, that's what I liked about reading is the entire time you're not just like, oh, I want to see how the Plutonian's crazy and like gonna fuck things up. Like when you're reading Nemesis, where you're just like, what is this crazy guy gonna do, or how do they overcome him? Instead, you're learning more about the world as you go through it. Where you're like, oh, like this is what like his power has shaped his life, or this is what these two people's relationships are like. Like that's what I like about the flashbacks is it feels like there's almost a world here that's been living before Mark Waid decided to start it and show you it. And so
Bet-Noir is sleeping, and Gilgamore or whatever his name is, Hawkman basically says like he says, "How's my wife?" So I'm like, "Oh, they're married," and she's like, "Yeah,
I'm okay. I tried to." He says, "I tried to protect you. Hit me like a thunderbolt." It seemed like he was saying something to you, and it flashes back, and he says to Bet, "You betrayed me," and she's like, "No, he said nothing important."
Yeah, so it's very obvious, like they were fucking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said, did you mention this cucking? Because that's kind of cucking. Well, I guess.
It is.
I think it was in the past. Right?
What was it?
Well,
it's cheating. It's always like the line between like the cooking and cheating.
Hawkman never knows being fucked, so it's technically just cheating. But maybe Mark Waid couldn't go that far. He's like he can't know. He has to be unaware.
He can't know, and he can't be like, I enjoy this.
Yeah, I assumed it was in the past, potentially before they were married, but I don't know.
No, but she's so afraid
defensive.
I don't.
I think
it gets into it. The issues. I was thinking about like whether or not we should start at issue 8 or issue 12, because issue 12 I think is where the trade ends, and they get into their relationship in like the next couple issues. And I think it was actually when they were married that she was cheating on him.
I got that message. I think it was very, very, very obviously painted that because she denies any like kind of involvement whatsoever, and it's very clear Plutonian has feelings for her. So like the fact that she is so unwilling to tell Hawkman anything makes it clear that it was like it was during.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And so they go back into the lab, and Cubit says like the Modiuses have locked on to a position. They're getting like images of where he's at, and then it shows like bits of like destroyed robots, and then like a big painting of the Justice League together with like it's been slashed out. And Bet immediately recognizes it, and she says it's his place. And they see it's Tony's sanctuary. It has like his like throne and his symbols on it. And then as they're looking around like through this connection, Tony looks back at them and then sees that they're pretty much spying on him.
They basically blow up the portal to blows up the portal to make sure like to stop the connection. But like, I think he knows where they are now.
And Carrie says there's 3 things we learned from that. 1, wherever Plutonian's hideout is, and wherever Modius is, we're gonna have to get through there to get to him. 2, Bet's lying to us because she knew his place.
Recognized it immediately.
Yeah.
And 3, the Modiuses are all gone.
When he says, and when they say, she recognizes, Carrie says she recognizes it because she fucked him, and Hawkman's like, starts beating the shit out of Carrie, saying, "How dare you!" But like that makes it obvious she fucked him.
Yeah.
Yep. Then we get to issue 6, and it starts with like text of it's a report from a social worker, and it's about this like kid that was living with these parents, and this is going on. The Plutonian's going through this home, and it's like subject was taken to this place. This is the 3rd family the boy's been placed with, and they've cited vague inability to caretake and personal emotional distress reasons for abandoning the case and returning the boy back.
And they said like it's so weird because this kid obviously wants to be loved and is eager to love too, and like they say he's a great kid every time they bring him back, but for some reason they can't put him in a home. And as he's walking through this home, he sees a blonde boy outside trying to fix his bike, and he uses his heat vision to try to melt the chains back together, and he just destroys it because it's hard, I guess, to have laser eyes.
And the Plutonian's like reaching over to him. He's like, "Danny, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be all right." He's telling this image of this boy. He says, "Don't do it." As the kid picks up the bite, "Don't make them afraid of you, Danny." And he just starts throwing them. And he yells like, "Mom, look out!" And then we don't see what happens because the Plutonian starts getting SOS, and then he flies away from this vision.
We're back at base, and they're just killing the Modius bots as they find them because they're all running away. They're not very dangerous. They're just kind of like walking around getting killed. And they're like, we can't let them loose in the world. Carrie's like, you shouldn't have said in earshot that they completed their purpose and they'd be no use afterwards,
Yeah, as soon as they find the Plutonian.
And basically the last one they find, they kill it, and they find a box that he had of Sam's stuff. Samsara's, his sidekick stuff. plutonium sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, they find a little thing that looks like a car fob. It's like the Captain Marvel summoning thing.
No, it's just like the thing. It's like Jimmy Olsen in the Watch. Z. It's the thing that's only Superman can hear the frequency.
Yeah,
and so he's like, oh no, it's a panic button.
So one of the Modi spots pressed it, and they're like, oh, okay, he's on his way here. We're fucked.
And they realize if he's coming here,
his base,
then he's not going to be at his base.
Right.
So everyone jumps through a dimensional portal to go to his base, and then Carrie stays behind, and he's like, the brother that's left that has no powers. He's like, I'm expendable. You guys jump through the portal because I'm just gonna pretty much like die here once he comes.
Yeah. And he says, I don't know if we mentioned this earlier. They had their powers together. Like the twins needed each other to get power. So when the one brother died, he has no powers.
Yeah, like the one twins always say, once the powers activate and put their like fists together, like they need the powers. Like that's the idea is that these two twins need the powers to operate.
And so the plutonium just flies Mach 4 through the wall, smashes everything. And as he does, Carrie turns.
He grabs Carrie's throat and he's holding up against the wall, ready to punch him. And then Carrie turns on the television, and it's about this children's play that had swept the Jackson, Tennessee area. And
it's like there's just these pictures of just like kids as skeletons everywhere with their clothes on and everything. So they somehow became skeletons like while playing out in the playground and everything. And it says a mysterious outbreak contained and neutralized before it could erupt into a global threat. The swift actions of Paradigm saved the millions, and Carrie says, hell of a day, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was the kind of thing that could give nightmares to the devil. And it was pretty evident that we were in over our heads. And it shows it cuts to them all freaking out because these kids are turning into skeletons, but they have their eyeballs in their head and they're still alive.
They're moving
they're just,
and stuff.
These,
yeah. We should also mention, I said before, the art style is very dark, like a Mark Millar comic. Even in the flashbacks, even when something grotesque happen like this, all the colors are very bright, vivid. So it's very much looks like a more comic booky in comparison.
It's just still it's horrifying to see this these children crawling as skeletons and qubits it's some kind of virus, extraterrestrial. I guess it's killing only children because only their autoimmune systems can't fight it off. It liquefies the skin and muscle, animates the skeleton, and it's spreading. And they're like, how is it spreading?
Can you hear it? And they're like, what? The alert? And it's like, not the alert, the virus. I can hear it, can't you? And he's like, ultrasonic. It's an ultrasonic life form. The virus spreads on the screams of the living. As people are screaming, the virus spreads over and starts killing kids.
Yeah, Plutonium's able to hear it, so he that's how he figured this out.
And they basically...
they build a big a big tuning fork that has a counter frequency.
Tony can hear the exact frequency it is. And they build this across the city, and they stop it. And it's we did everything as well as and quickly as we could, but too much damage was already done. The only thing that was scary to us was seeing your reaction to what happened that day. We had never imagined you like that, but to be fair, I would have been speechless too if it had been my fault. And that's the stinger for the end, is Carrie telling him it was his fault that these kids were turning into skeletons. At the same time, the Justice League in his Fortress of Solitude finds a room that's a bunch of skeleton kids sitting around.
Yep.
Very creepy.
And then there's also a room where it's just got naked pictures of Bet around that Bet finds. And she's like, never mind about this.
This room is empty. It's a closet.
Yeah, nothing in here. So issue 7 starts with the Plutonian fighting against Carrie and smashing him against
him up against the wall. And he basically explains how he figured it out. He's like, I found that car alarm thing that turned out to be the SOS in the lab that was destroyed. So he's like, So.
In the lab where the virus originated from. The comic is interspersed between things of Carrie and the Plutonian talking and telling about the backstory, and then back at the lab that
they find the
Plutonian's headquarters where everyone else is at. And there's that lady that had the wig put on her, the Batman lady that was saved.
Yeah, former supervillain.
The Encanta.
Yeah, and she's shooting lasers at them.
It's when they capture her and she says, so that sick bastard's going to pass me around to his friends. That it? Don't touch me.
And then the Hawkman's like, why is she dressed like my wife?
Yeah, she's wearing the exact same outfit except the wig.
Yeah.
And Bet's like,
yeah, just shaking her head.
And so they go back to Carrie, and basically they start to give some backstory about how...
Carrie explains how he figured it out.
Yep, and they say how how this even started was that there was an alien war, but like when they attacked Earth or whatever, and Paradigm fought the aliens, and all of the scientists started to beg Paradigm, saying, "Give us the technology."
Paradigm's the Justice League of this world.
They started to beg the Justice League, saying, "Please give us the technology." And they agreed as a team, we're not going to give over any of this stuff to humans. But there was one scientist who wouldn't let it go. He was just basically slandering the Plutonian on every
blog posts, editorials, screeching idiot tirades about how selfish I was not to share the technology that might benefit the world.
It got to the point where no one alive was allowed to say anything good about the Plutonian without that jackass answering them with an insult. Mm-hmm. And Carrie says the Plutonian reads blogs, and Plutonian says the Plutonian Carrie promised to pay attention to everyone. And basically, he starts like losing his like shit from this guy, and he flies over to his lab, and this is when we start to see that while he's talking to this guy, you hear him hearing a mugging.
Gonna be okay, kids. 612 in progress. Drop your weapons. Tornado watch 1.4 tremor.
And he shows up.
He talks to this guy, and he's like, at first the guy's like, Plutonian, he's like, I'm not here to hurt you, Dr. Seabrook. I just want to answer. You say this crusade isn't about you. It's about mankind. Is that true? He's like, yes. And he says, can I trust you? And he says, yes. And it shows like the heartbeat, lines again, and it shows that he's not lying to the Plutonian. So then it's like, all right, then let's start small. I retrieved this gift from an alien craft, and here you go. It contains some sort of self-sustaining sound wave. You might find some application for it.
I also I know I spoiled it earlier and I keep bringing it up, but like the fact that he's hearing everything, it really changes my outlook on him so much. How like even hearing people say like praying or someone saying hit the brakes, like someone's about to die, and he like is having to hear this and thinking I probably could fly to them fast enough to stop this, but I have to talk to this guy.
Yeah,
and he gives them the SOS signal, and he says, You examine this alien thing, but if anything seems dangerous, you press this, and I will be here instantly.
So then he tells Carrie after this, he's like, "You're lucky your brother's dead." And he's like, "Excuse me, the powerless part. Without him, you're an ordinary man. You could have a boring, ordinary life. No more constant dread. No more 24/7. No more noise." And then it shows like a big splash page of him like hearing everyone like asking for help, being shot. Well, he's saving a bunch of people.
Yeah, he's saving a baby. He's saving a guy falling off a building. He's saving a drowning guy, and he's still hearing all this people yelling.
And then there's a flashback to him saving like a boat, and the owner was like, "Oh, all this bullet damage. You ruined my boat. You can't expect you to pay for all this damage. You have to fix this." And
Tony's like, "I'm not a carpenter, sir." He's like, "Use your powers or something." And Kaiden with him is like, "Go ahead, use your wood vision."
Yeah, so she like takes as a joke, like, "Isn't this funny?" But he freaks out and saying, "I owe you nothing." He also had the guy saying, "I owe you nothing. Stop it. Just stop it. Like, I saved your goddamn boat. Give me 1 minute of peace." And he flies away into space.
And as he's flying, he's hearing the people on Earth all yelling, and it's like the word bubbles start to fade away as he hits space.
And now
they get smaller and smaller.
And now he's basically Dr. Manhattan on the moon.
Yeah.
He's saying, "I'm tired of these people. I'm tired of being entrapped in the tangle of their lives."
Yeah.
And it's really great because his face when he first lands on the moon, he's so anguished. He's like so upset.
He's grimacing.
Yeah, and he starts to like calm down. He's like, maybe 10. Like I have 10 minutes of silence for the first time in my goddamn life.
Yeah, he says, "I don't know exactly how long I was there, but it could have been 5 or 10. After all I've given the world, how could 10 minutes possibly be too much to ask?" And then as he starts getting closer to Earth, he hears the SOS from that doctor he gave the sound device to, and that's when the children started turning into the skeletons.
Yeah.
And then goes to modern day, and he asks Carrie, "Who else knows?" And Carrie is like, "No one. That's a hell of a secret, Tony." And it's like Tony's going to Heat vision him, but Carrie says, "I have a secret too." And he blasts him with his eye.
My brother never had his own power, Tony. He shared mine.
So plot twist, he's not one of his powers, he's Shazam.
I love that too. I was like, wow, that surprised me quite a bit, actually.
Yeah. Especially because the entire time, like, he blasts Tony pretty far away. And the entire time you feel like it's just going to be like, we got to find a way to stop the Plutonian. I almost call him Plutonian Man again.
That's also why I started liking it, because I know this comic goes on for 37 issues. I think 37 issues of him just going to countries and blowing up everyone would get too tiring.
Like terrorizing people would get tiring.
Like, I think Mark Waid would love doing that. That'd be like his favorite comic to write. But I think Mark Waid knows enough to have some back and forth happen.
Yeah. Like, that's why I thought, like, maybe this could wrap up within, like, maybe 8 or 10 or 12. But I was pleasantly surprised that it kept going on for more than this. Because it keeps, like, as it's progressing, you're like, oh, there's more to this than I thought. And it goes into the next issue starts, our final issue, issue 8, starts with the Wonder Twins talking about, like, Carrie talking about his powers, where he's like, my brother had no powers from the day he was born, but he could siphon my energy and I let him. And that made us look like equals.
We never told anybody, not a single person, but half my power wasn't enough to save him when you brought Inferno's headquarters down around us. The second I woke up, I could feel he was gone. I could feel it. All that excess energy had nowhere to go. It was practically jumping out of my skin. You'd killed my brother. I knew that then I could do the same to you if I faked being powerless, if I could blindside you. And then he, like, you see... like a Sky City sign, and remember that's the city he destroyed, it says, welcome to Sky City, protected by the Plutonian, and the Plutonian smashes through it. Like, he really fucking flies. He hit him so hard. Yeah. He has a black eye, actually.
And Carrie said, that's what sucks about being invulnerable, Tony. You never have to learn how to fight.
I also love that, too. I'm like, there's no way Superman would be a good fighter. Like, seriously.
We talk about Muhammad Ali versus Superman. Like, there's no way he would actually know technique or anything. Like,
right. He can't. I mean, like, he literally... fights can never last with him because he just blows that people up.
And so him and Carrie fight for the majority of this issue. And Carrie's just like... he's really just yelling at him.
Yeah, he's like, what made you turn this city into a river of blood? Some 5-year-old flip you off?
and his power... he has, like, energy, like radiation power kind of thing. Like, he's glowing red the entire time.
Yep, and then it cuts like back to the base, the Plutonian's headquarters, and the Hawkman's like, "Why are you dressing like my wife?" to that lady.
Then the wife starts to pull out a gun in the background.
Yeah, but she's just like reloading it. It's one of those things where like it keeps you on edge because it makes it seem like she's gonna kill her, but you know she's checking her ammunition, her glowing bullets.
Did he call your? And then Hawkman says, "Did he call your name or hers?"
Do you satisfy his needs? Was he the best you ever had? He's really insecure.
He's fucking going after this poor sex slave.
And then Bet's pointing the gun at her now.
Yeah, so she was just gonna shoot in the face.
She was, and then the rest of the team busts in, and they're like, "Oh, we couldn't find anything." And then she puts the gun away. She's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, and Cupid's like, "Carrie died to buy us time to search." And then he realizes that the Modiuses were looking here. They're trying to find him. Like, the thing they were looking for is here. And he realizes, he's like, oh, it's her. It's the sex slave. That's what Modius bots were wanting to find. And so then it cuts back to Carrie, and he's just like zapping the Plutonian, punching him. And he's, why? And the Plutonian's like, Samsara. And he's like, Samsara, your sidekick? That kid you worshipped and you carved up his brain? He's like, he was never supposed to know.
This cutscene, this flashback is
this
so
cutscene.
brutal.
I love this game. The gameplay's 10 out of 10. This cutscene going for too fucking long.
He comes back. The Plutonian comes back to Sam, and he's like, Sam, you home? I got a surprise for you, buddy. The lost sapphire of Ishwar. It took some digging, literally, but I found it for you. Your research was dead on. And then he's like, Sam, what's wrong? And Sam is like shaken, and he's like, the Jackson Plague.
He's like, God, what a nightmare. What's wrong, pal? You look like you got the weight of the world on your shoulders. What can I do to help? And he says, tell me they're wrong. The scientists at Sky City Research that could call to talk to me. And he said that the records are there, that they know what really happened in Jackson, that you know where the virus came from.
And he said, like, tell me it's not true. And Tony's like, I don't know. What is it? And Samsara says, I never knew you could lie. And that's what basically triggers.
Yeah. Oh my God.
He flies out of there and he arrives to the lab and he's like, why did you tell him? And the scientist is like, he's like, he didn't have to know. No one trusted me like he did. And you took that away from me. I make one stupid mistake and now I have nothing. Now no one will ever look up to me again. And he's just burning the place down.
After all the good I've done. Stop it! Stop looking at me like I'm some bomb that can go off any time. Is that what you think I am? Is that how you want me to be? Is it? And then
he goes off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it shows like the wreckage of the whole city.
He doesn't even say, I didn't mean for Jackson to happen. Is that how this works? Like he obviously didn't intend to have a supersonic plague go off.
Yeah.
I think then he blows up the fucking place. This seems to be his when he starts murdering people phase.
That was definitely his turning point there.
Yep. And then Tony says that he told that to Carrie that so he could like sucker punch him and like Carrie blasts him in the face, and then everyone comes through the portal, and to see him, and they're like, Carrie, you're alive. And it's like, better than I'm alive. I'm kicking this bastard's ass. And then the Plutonian just flies away now that he's been outnumbered. And Carrie's like, ha! He's gone off to lick his wounds. And he's like, we don't have to worry about him anymore because now, like, I can clearly fight him wherever he shows up. And he says to them,
Carrie's also like, I'm the leader of this team now. I'm the best.
Yeah. I'm going to lead us to victory now that I'm the one calling the shots. Tony's on the run now. And everyone's looking at each other like, uh-oh, like, whoa, he's getting a little confident. And they ask, where do you think he went? And it shows a hole in the ground. And deep within the hole, like, you know, as the Plutonian flew through it, it's that he arrived underground beneath the cemetery at Samsara's coffin.
That was so sad to me. He's just laying there all beat up, holding Samsara in the coffin. And that's why in that first scene where I'm like, when he's just zapping the coffin area, the graveyard, I'm like, maybe he would. He lost his fucking mind. I mean,
it could also be like a thing, like maybe as Mark Waid, as he was writing more of it, he was like really leaning into like what Tony would find special, like what he would still hang on to and whatnot.
Well, I know from based on the Amazon reviews, people bitch that they had the trades just have 4 issues at a time or whatever. So or maybe as he realized the series was going to continue and be successful, he started fleshing it out more over time. And maybe in the beginning it was just more edgelordy to see if it will catch a market. Who knows?
Yeah. The reason I mean, if we're going into final thoughts, the reason I really liked this, I really, really liked this was like, I think what makes it great is the reason I think it's such a good inversion of Superman is because as the hero, Plutonian was like, his big downfall was that he cared so hard about the world. Like he was trying so hard to be a good guy. And that when he lost it all because he fucked up, he like couldn't handle it. Whereas if he was just kind of a more callous, like, I'm saving people kind of guy, he never would have gone evil because he wouldn't have cared that much.
Yeah, it's if he was less sensitive to the plight of the world, he'd be like, I'm trying to do my best. Whereas here, it's like he just wants so hard to do this, and also like he doesn't have the like mental integrity to hold on to like those, like when the mistake happened, like the virus was released, like that just broke him. He never wanted something of that magnitude to get out.
Yeah.
To be the cause of like his negligence, because he needed to fly away from people always yelling at him.
Like I said, it feels like how a normal person would react to this. Because imagine how many people Superman saves on like a daily basis, and like how many times he saved like the entire planet. Mm-hmm. And like, so imagine like after doing all that, you're going to be viewed as a monster for.
And he would be too.
Yeah.
He would be viewed as a monster, and that's what's that's why I was sympathetic, because I'm like, he saved the whole planet. That means like everyone would be dead. Every billions of people, all of them would be dead if not for him. But they would still. What would be in everyone's minds is, no, he's the guy who killed all those people in that plague.
Yeah.
And what I like too is it's like the choice there, like it was his fault because he gave the equipment.
By trusting.
And it's because he was trusting this guy, and he did want to make the world a better place. This guy's like, this science could help us. And it's like, maybe you would give alien science over to like government officials or scientists because you're like, can this help like cure cancer or whatever?
And it's one of those things like everyone was agreeing with that scientist guy saying, yeah, why isn't he like they say like he wouldn't go away, like he was going on TV all the time to say like, wow, Plutonian's an asshole for now, give us technology. So like, and like even though everyone agreed with that guy at the time, no one's gonna remember that. Everyone's gonna be like, it's like how Trump said, I was against the Iraq War even though he was for it. Like everyone's in much space like, I was right. This guy is the worst guy ever. He fucked up. Why would he believe that crazy scientist man?
Whenever people aren't the ones personally affected, they always are like, I was on the right side of everything always.
Yeah. And that's why, like, I really like this, and I want to, like, read it again, or, like, have you guys read it. It wasn't just, like, the edgy pitch of, like, what if Superman murdered people? It was more just, like, what if Superman wasn't always going to do the right thing? Like, what if he wasn't fallible?
Like Ryan always says, Superman is super everything, including super moron. But what if he was just, like, a human being who happened to have superpowers?
Yeah. What if it was, like, Batman with the power of Superman?
Yeah,
Batman would have killed everyone already.
Yeah, and plus, as I was reading it, the part that I started to like more than the first time I read it is I did like
the sex scenes.
the world being built around it, that it became a lot more like interesting to me, having read a lot more comics, being like, oh, he's actually like, he's doing some interesting things here. Like, I want to see more of what happens here. Like, in the beginning of the next issue, the American government, like the top brass gets together and they pull out a gun. They're like, all right, so we only know of one way to stop him. We're gonna have to like summon a demon from hell by shooting one of us in the head, and to get hit, like, because the demon had fought the Plutonian before, and I'm like, that's fun, like superhero kind of.
Oh, now it's fun. It was dumb before, but now it's fun.
Yeah, well, another way to look at it, Sly, is maybe I've just broken down something that I found dumb the first time I read this. Now I'm like, this is cool superhero stuff. They gotta shoot themselves in the head to summon a demon.
Well, now it's rip off Persona, whatever game that was.
It's Persona Game F.
Yeah.
Wait, did it? Never mind. I'm not looking this up.
I don't care enough.
Yeah, I don't care enough about what came first. So, what'd you think, Sly? You liked it?
Yeah, at the beginning it felt very edgelordy.
Yes.
I do think I will say that even when I wasn't like digging it all the way, I do think Mark Waid's talented writer still shone through. I never felt this was like a Mark Millar book where it felt like torture to read. And,
yes.
And when I started getting more into what really caused his shift, that's where like I can like he's obviously a monster, but I can he's at least an interesting monster, and I can see why he would become this.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, I thought this was really cool. Also, when I started reading, I'm like, is this DC or what is this? And then I was like,
Boom Comics.
No, it's Boom, Steve. It's funny because now DC has Injustice, Gods Among Us, so they have kind of like their own equivalent, but obviously not this gory or this violent. Is
Injustice is a comic, like it's a video
series?
It's
the game.
It's a video game.
Oh.
Yeah, it's funny because that's why I'm like, oh, it's not that original.
I knew it was a game. I'm like, is this also? Because I just assumed you're always talking about comics when you're like, DC also has this. Like, I wouldn't be like, DC also has films.
Actually, there's a tie-in comic to the game that people say is really good, but I've never read it. But from what I know, I think it's basically the same thing where Superman eventually just snaps and becomes evil.
Cool. Everything gets redone if you give it enough time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening, and thank you for being part of the Patreon. And I don't know what plugs are supposed to go here.
Listen to the shows on the Comrade
network.
Flying Machine.
Go listen to 33 and a Third Under 45, Ryan's music blog. He just did one on Ingrid Michelson's Stranger Songs. Cool. So thank you guys for listening, and we'll see what we're gonna do next week. I'm not even sure what we're doing next week.
Shade the Changing Man.
Shade the Changing Man. Okay, yeah. Cool. This has been the only time.
I thought that was your outro. I thought you were saying I've been Shade the Changing Man.
Maybe I'll say it next week.
And I was like, what is that from? What is that?
Thank you for listening. I've been turning kids into skeletons.
I've been wearing a dress and getting fucked by somebody else.
And I've been about to lobotomize Darryl, so he can't talk about me to people.
Stay in continuity, I guess?
Continuity? I don't know.
Continuity. Oh, don't stay in there. Unless you like it. Not gonna kink shame.
Yeah, Millar, you can do it if you want. If you're listening.
He was listening since Nemesis. Stay in continuity.
Bye.